So we had the opportunity together in January 2020, just before the pandemic. We went to the Shrine of the Book in the Israel Museum, and we examined the Aleppo Codex directly. And
at least the pages which survived from, because we
right, the pages that survived we didn't examine, or maybe they survived, but we don't know where they are, right?
Yes.
So let me ask this question: when we examined the Aleppo Codex together, you say it's the most accurate. So this raises an interesting question. What are you comparing it with? And I know the answer, but explain to the audience. In other words, a lot of people say, oh, the Aleppo Codex is the Masoretic text. So if there's something in the Aleppo Codex that's right or wrong, that is what the Masoretes determine the Masoretic text to be. And you're saying it's the closest to the Masoretic text. So what does that mean?
So I'll go back again to my teacher, Rabbi Boyer. He said, I don't know that I don't use the Aleppo Codex because it has a prestige or something like that. I want to examine to see which of the ancient manuscripts is more accurate. And the method will be to examine the Masorah comments and to see which of the manuscripts implement correctly the context of the Masorah comment in the biblical version of his own manuscript. That means,
explain what the Masoretic comments are, because I'm sure a lot of the audience don't understand what that means.
So let's go to the cases of defective and plena spellings.
Explain first what defective and plena is.
Yes.
Assuming that you mentioned the example of shomer can be written with a vav or out of vav, without a vav.
So the Masorah can say that one word. Let's take one example.
Perfect. You wrote a book about it. Let's see what the book says.
Okay.
And on the website, nehemiaswall.com, we'll put a link where you can go and find this book on Amazon or wherever it's available.
Okay.
Hopefully it's on Amazon, or it's a De Gruyter. We'll put a link to wherever it's sold.
Okay. So let's take the word vayireu, and they feared. The same word is written in some verses with two yuds, vayireu, vav yud yud reish aleph vav, and in other verses in the Bible, the same word in the same meaning is written defective only with one yud.
So defective is when it's written without one of these letters like yud, vav, or hey, and plena is where it has more of them.
Okay. So now the Masorah comments try to describe the places in the Bible, the distribution of the two ways of writing. And it says in the book of Samuel, the defective writing is common. And there is only one exception, and it gives the exception. In all other books, the distribution is the opposite. Most cases are written plena, and only 4 cases are written defective. So the Masorah gives an exact description of all the times. There are about 20 occurrences of the word in the whole Bible, and according to Masorah, it gives us full details about these 20 cases. Now you can go back to the codices and find out which of them follow these instructions of the Masorah. And then you may find in many cases that the Leningrad Codex does not follow these instructions. It differs in one word or two from these comments. And even if sometimes the same comments is written somewhere in the Masorah of this manuscript, but maybe it's written in the book of Samuel, and then we go out to the book of Daniel or the book of Chronicles, and you find a word that was not written according to the rules of the Masorah, which are accepted by all manuscripts. So you can conclude that the version of the Aleppo Codex is nearly complete. It always follows the instructions of the Masorah, much more than the other manuscripts that were compared.
So in other words, they took detailed notes and they recorded detailed notes of this word is spelled this many times this way and that many times. Even though it doesn't change the meaning, they wanted the fixed exact spelling. And then you go and you compare the manuscripts and see which of them which of them follow those instructions.
Yes.
And you're saying the Aleppo Codex is the close. So it's not that it was Aaron ben Asher and his prestige. It was that this is the one that fits the Masoretic notes closest.
That's right. That was the finding of Rabbi Breuer, and I thought about that. I don't think that it means that Aaron ben Asher was cleverer than other Masoretes. But how did he succeed to create such a book which follows the Masorah in all cases? Let's take the examples which we spoke about earlier. If a Masorah wanted to copy this Masorah comment, he had to copy 2 or 3 lines. He can do it in 2 or 3 minutes. Now, if he wants to check if the context of this Masorah, to implement it all over the Bible, he should read the whole Bible. He didn't have a concordance, he didn't have a computer. You had to find out where this word Vayiru appears all over the Bible. And then you have to make sure that in each case of these 20 cases which are spread all over the Bible, each of them follows the instruction of the Masorah. To do that, you have to work some days or maybe more than days to verify that one comment of the Masorah is implemented perfectly all over the Bible. So we know about the Aleppo Codex that it was a personal manuscript of Aaron ben Asher, and during all his lifetime, he checked it again and again. We can see that the Masorah comments were not written in one time, but he added from time to time other Masorah comments, additional Masorah comments, and then he also corrected the spelling in many cases, and that's why his manuscript was so accurate, because he checked it again and again. The Masoret of the Leningrad Codex, we know his name, Shmuel ben Yaakov. We know that he wrote many codices. He signed his name on many codices. So he was an expert in copying, in writing Masorah, in creating new Masorah comments. But he worked and he wanted to complete one book and get his money for his work and go on to create another one. That's what his work was, to copy books, to copy the Masorah comments, to complete and then to create many codices of the Bible. Aaron ben Asher had one personal book which he worked about his version all over his life, and I think that's the explanation why it was found so accurate in comparison with other.
So you're saying this was his personal copy?
Yeah.
What did he use it for? The Aleppo Codex was Aaron ben Asher's personal copy, you're saying?
Yes. I'll also add that it was not so common to write a whole book of the whole Bible. It's a very heavy book with about 600 or 500 leaves. So it's a lot of work. Many other codices were contained only the Torah, or only the former prophets, or only parts of the Bible. The Aleppo Codex is a codex that contains the whole Bible, and it was written very nice in nice letters. It was not the letters were not written by Aaron ben Asher. He took an expert scribe who knew how to write very nice letters. But then that was the basic of his work, the work of the scribe, which his name was Shlomo ben Boya. And then Aaron ben Asher got his work and not only added all the punctuation and cantillation signs and the Masorah notes. He also checked every spelling all over the Bible and corrected where it should have been be corrected according to the Masorah.
So when he had these notes, like you gave the example of Vayir'u, which is written with 2 yuds or with 1 yud, if he found a place where it was written wrong, he would fix it.
Of course, yes. And
Okay.
we can find such cases in the manuscripts where the spelling was written something like plene, and then someone corrected it, and you can assume that it was Aaron ben Asher himself that corrected the planning, and then sometimes he added a Masorah note, which is connected with his change of spelling.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So here's the quote from Maimonides. I'm just going to read this. So he describes, at the time of Maimonides, the Aleppo Codex was in Cairo. And he says, the manuscript that we relied upon is the famous manuscript in Egypt that contains the 24 books, which was in Jerusalem for a number of years ago to proofread manuscripts based on it. Everyone used to rely on it because Ben Asher proofread it, checking the details in it for years. And he proofread it many times. And he says, as has been reported. Moshe Atiku.
We have to emphasize that Maimonides didn't know personally Ben Asher, who
No, it was
lived
100 years.
100 years before, about 250 years before. But these traditions, he heard about the Aleppo Codex, and he knew that it was when it has been in Jerusalem. It became a famous manuscript and a very prestige manuscripts, which people relied upon. If someone wanted to be sure what the version is in some word, he went to Jerusalem, he asked to see the manuscript, and then he got an answer to his question.
Mm-hmm.
So Maimonides heard about that and knew about that. He also said that Ben Asher corrected his version. Maybe he saw it in the manuscript it's himself, some correction. Maybe he got a tradition, an oral tradition about this. But Ben Asher worked in Tiberias. After his death, his codex moved to Jerusalem and was kept by the Karaim, by the Karaite leaders of Jerusalem, and then everyone wanted to see something, went to them and got a permission to check this famous manuscript. And then when the Tzalbanim, the Crusaders came, they took it with them, and then the people of Cairo redeemed it, the manuscript, and
they ransomed it from the Crusaders.
Yes, and that's how it came to Cairo.